We're going to go ahead and talk about the Biden town hall today. Or rather, the town hall in general, the climate change town hall, and Joe Biden's, I don't even know what to call it, his performance or lack thereof. I mean, dude did unlock the Sharing gun. Can we at least give him credit for that? He unlocked the Sharing gun. For those of you that are fans of Naruto, or aren't fans of Naruto, rather, that it's a red eye that gives you like special powers and stuff. So yeah, Joe Biden unlocked the Sharing gun last night. I did not know he was a Uchiha. He is. That's the clan that has that special power. But enough jokes. Enough jokes. Terrible anime reference jokes. So we're gonna go ahead and go to this video of him being called out for going to a fundraiser tonight, which would be the night after the climate change debate, and whether or not he would be able to hold certain people accountable when he's taking money from them. Let's go ahead and take a look at that and come right back.
I want to introduce you to Isaac Larkin. He's a PhD candidate at Northwestern University studying synthetic biology, which honestly, I don't really even know what that is. I just have to throw that out.
It's awesome.
He currently supports Senator Bernie Sanders, but you could change his mind tonight. Who knows, Isaac?
It doesn't look like I do that with it.
Senator Biden, I'm 27 years old. Half of all greenhouse gas emissions ever generated by the entire history of human civilization have been released in my lifetime. This despite the now well-documented fact that 40 years ago, scientists at Exxon and Shell knew and reported to their bosses that burning fossil fuels was warming the planet and would destabilize the climate. Fossil fuel corporations, their executives, their trade and industry organizations, and their think tank front groups have waged a decades-long campaign of lying to the public about the science, and it has brought us to a crisis that threatens the entire human race. Now, I know that you signed the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge, but I have to ask, how can we trust you to hold these corporations and executives accountable for their crimes against humanity when we know that tomorrow you are holding a high-dollar fundraiser hosted by Andrew Goldman, a fossil fuel executive?
He is not a fossil fuel executive, I'm told. He is not a fossil fuel executive. And the fact of the matter is that what we talk about is, what are we going to do about those corporations? What have we done? And everywhere along the way, for example, I've argued and pushed for us suing those executives who are engaged in pollution, those companies who are engaged in pollution. I've never walked away from that. I've also been one of those people who, when I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, got involved in plans to be able to join people together in order to take on these corporate interests. When back in 1986, they entered one of the first climate plans that existed. PolitiFact said it was a game changer. I've been engaged in this from the beginning.
Let me just inform our audience about some of the details that Aaron was talking about, because I think it's important. I think a lot of people don't know about the studies that you cited. 2017, there was a Harvard study that examined both public and private communications from ExxonMobil. The study showed that for 40 years, while the company publicly were raising doubts about climate change and the dangers of it, internally, ExxonMobil scientists and executives were acknowledging the threat to the planet. There was 2018, there was a Dutch news organization which uncovered internal communications from Royal Dutch Shell showing they understood the impacts of climate change and the company's contribution to it all the way back to the 80s. Let me just point out that in response to Harvard, Exxon said, our statements have been consistent with our understanding of climate science. Shell said, quote, its position on climate change has been a matter of public record for decades. We strongly support the Paris Agreement on climate change. But Isaac's question is, will you hold fossil fuel corporations and executives who've lied to the public accountable?
Yes, and by the way, just like we did the tobacco industry that lied to the public, just like we did the opioid industry.
So how do you do that?
Well, the way you do that is you try to change the law. You go after them, you try to change the law.
To his other question, though, about this fundraiser, there is a fundraiser tomorrow night. It's given by a guy named Andrew Goldman. He does hedge funds and stuff, but he also has a company called Western LNG. And their biggest project, which I think was announced in like 2018, is a floating liquefied facility for natural gas. It's off the coast of British Columbia, and it's going to provide Canadian gas to parts of northern Asia. So what Andrew is saying is, if you're going to a fundraiser that's given in part by this guy who has a company that is pulling up natural gas, are you the right guy to go after these?
Well, I didn't realize he does that. I was told if you look at the SEC filings, he's not listed as one of those executives. That's what we look at, the SEC filings. Who are those executives? I've kept that pledge, period.
So are you going to look at that fundraiser tomorrow night?
I'm going to look at what you just told me and find out if that's accurate. Yes.
Okay. I think it's pretty accurate. Aaron, I called you Isaac. I called you Aaron. I apologize. Isaac, thank you for your question.
Completely point out that this was a coordinated attack by the Bernie Bros, the far left agenda being just sexist and misogynist again. No, in all seriousness, though, it was really interesting to see him get challenged like that on CNN. So, and CNN's extra prepared with these type of things. And Anderson Cooper was ready with a follow-up. So, I mean, credit where credit is due. It's not often that we get to give Anderson Cooper and CNN credit for holding someone that's a part of the Democratic establishment accountable for their actions. But they did it in this instance. So, clap it up, respect, hats off, the whole nine. I did find his answers really questionable, because not only because he dodged it in typical establishment form, but in the way that he did dodge it. Because there's another clip I'm going to show y'all in a minute that shows how questionable he was on these things. But let's for some background, just because it was kind of mentioned in it, but I want to give you guys a little more background before I give you my full commentary. Like, it was a dodge, we know, but let's go to The Intercept, who actually helped or has the best what's the word I'm looking for? Excuse me, y'all. Having a brain fart right now. They have the best synopsis of the whole story. So here it says, the day after Joe Biden participates in CNN's climate forum in New York, the former vice president will head to a high-dollar fundraiser co-hosted by the founder of a fossil fuel company, Andrew Goldman, a co-founder of Western LNG, a natural gas production company based in Houston, Texas. Blah 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 blah. Y'all already know all that based on there. But then in the second paragraph, it gets into a little more on Goldman and Biden's ties. It says Goldman and Biden have deep ties. Goldman served as an advisor to Biden when he was in the Senate and was the Northeast Director of Finance for Biden's 2008 campaign. He's also an executive at the investment banking firm Hildred Capital Partners. He and his partner David Solomon, along with their wives Renee and Sarah, will host a private fundraiser for Biden at the Solomon House, CNBC reported. Goldman also co-founded D. Cordova Goldman Capital Management, which invested in natural resources and energy. According to the company's website, Western deploys innovative floating liquefaction technology and inland locations, specifically those that have existing pipeline access to natural gas basins. So, yeah, like, he's not just getting money from people. It's important that we clarify that, and I don't think CNN clarified that enough. It's not that he's just taking money from these folks. He's worked with that man for a long time. That is his boy from back in the game. Like, his 2008 campaign is 2019. You know what I mean? Like, even when he was in the Senate, the dude was one of his advisors. Like, this dude goes back with Joe Biden. And Joe Biden's going to get his back. So, yeah, that is a fair question. Is he going to be the one to hold them accountable when not only A, is he boys with the people that run these companies, and he's told Wall Street before that nothing will fundamentally change for them. Is that part of nothing fundamentally changing? I would have liked to see that kind of follow-up. But we'll see. And furthermore, I want to point this out because this was an update on the Intercept piece. what's highlighted here. But Splinter News, so after this forum, Simone Sanders, a Biden spokesperson, dug in, insisting that Goldman was not really involved with the firm he co-founded. But Splinter News dug up a Canadian filing from last year that asks, please briefly identify the other senior management personnel involved with Western. The answer, quote, Western is managed by a seasoned team of executives experienced in the LNG and related energy infrastructure industries. Western's co-founder is Andrew Goldman, Chief Investment Officer of Hildred Capital Partners. He is a long-term investor in the liquefied natural gas sector. An industry press release from 2018 also speaks about Goldman as having a present tense role in the company and describes him as a, quote, long-term investor in the liquefied natural gas sector, end quote. He's also the second person listed under their leadership on Western's site. Translation, Simone Sanders and Joe Biden are full of crap. Because that's the documents right there. That's the SEC filings. You said, look at the SEC filings. There go the SEC filings, Joe Biden. Simone Sanders. There go the SEC filings right there. So they looked at the SEC filings, and the SEC filings say, nah, partner, not only is he heavily invested in this, not only is he the founder, he's the second person listed for leadership. And when they're filing their SEC filings, they put his name on there. This is what we're talking about. Full of crap. Joe Biden, again, shows that he's not going to be for the people at all, in any way, shape, or form. And this is a consistent problem with him. Like, there are folks that are saying, well, we got to take the front runner because, like, he's got the best chance to beat Trump. You go ahead and put that man up against Trump if you want to. I'm going to tell you right now, you will lose. Like, centrism lost. We tried it in 2016. It's over with. Go home. You lost. Go home, Steve. Go home, go home, go home, go home. Go home, Steve. That's a reference to Family Matters. For those of you that happen to be much younger than me. So we're going to go to the second video here because Joe Biden, in the first video that I just showed y'all, Joe Biden says that he wants to pass laws at the national level that could possibly make a difference in terms of fracking. But then he turns around and goes right back on that. If you look at the second video here. So this is 10 minutes after he answered that question. Joe Biden puts on the flip-flops 10 minutes later. Let's take a look.
I want to introduce you to Barbara Jarmaska. Is that right? Good.
Hey, Barbara.
A retired business owner from Montoursville, Pennsylvania. Barbara?
Good evening, Mr. Vice President. I live in rural Pennsylvania in the bullseye of the Marcellus Shale. Currently, the county I live in is home to 1,600 plus permitted fracked gas wells. I have witnessed firsthand the tragic and appalling destruction of our beautiful forests and Pennsylvania wilds. Sadly, our Democratic governor is all in for fracked gas. As president, what can you do to change the direction of the catastrophic climate change policies and future plans at the state level?
And I just want to point out to our viewers, the Marcellus Shale is a rock formation underground. It's enormous. It's approximately 2/3 of Pennsylvania, as well as parts of New York, Ohio, and West Virginia, and Maryland is the largest natural gas field in the U.S.
I know that. Thank you.
that was for...
No. I thought you were telling me. Thank you. I appreciate the help. Look, number one, I think the way we deal with state lands is we have less latitude, what we say we can and cannot do. I've argued against any more oil drilling or gas drilling on federal lands. that we can and to stop that. I think we should, in fact, be looking at what exists now and making a judgment whether or not those in fact that are there, those wells that are there, whether or not they're dangerous, or whether or not they've already done the damage, and what we can do from there by trying to change the attitude of the members of the governors of the various state and the state legislatures. Now, we could pass national legislation, but I don't think we'd get it done in terms of getting the votes to get it done, to say all fracking that's going on now ends unless you can show there's some physical security need or worried about explosions, et cetera, which is a legitimate thing to worry about. But I would not allow any more.
Also, I just want to point out, in fairness to the governor of Pennsylvania, he's stopped short. He's moved to regulate and limit some fracking, stopped short of calling for a statewide ban. So just to be clear, you would not call for a ban statewide on fracking or nationwide. You said stop new oil and gas drilling on federal lands.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would also go back and look at what's out there now to determine whether or not it is safe, physically safe. Mm-hmm. As they're called earthquakes and the like. That's what I would do.
Our next question.
There used to be an EPA. And no, you think I'm kidding. It's almost not there now. But anyway.
All right, so there he is, putting his flip-flops on. 10 minutes later, during the debate, at first you said that we will hold them accountable by changing the laws, which, in all honesty, isn't holding them accountable at all. It's not changing the laws is not holding them accountable. Holding them accountable would be charging them with crimes against humanity, because that's what they did, crimes against humanity, and doing a perp walk. That's holding them accountable. Fines for, I don't know how much ever, half their company's worth, all of their company's value, to make sure that all of that money goes towards funding the cleanup for what they've done. That's holding them accountable. Holding somebody accountable literally means you make reparations for your mistakes. You don't just get a slap on the wrist and say, I'm sorry. That's not what you do for crimes against humanity. That's not holding them accountable. That's letting them go. Number one. That's what changing the laws does. Number two, 10 minutes later, he just backtracked and he's talking about well, I don't think that changing the laws is something we can do because that's not possible. Bro, what are you talking about? You just said, 10 minutes ago, that it really 13 if you want to be exact, that he was gonna change the laws. And here we go. Joe Biden with the flip-flops and the sharing gun. I'm sorry, I hate to make fun. I don't want to make fun of him because that's not something to make fun of. He's got some kind of serious issues going on. However, somebody need to tell him, dog, go home. Period. It's too serious right now. It's too much going on and too much at stake for the Democratic Party to make this choice.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.